So our agenda for today, we'll do some very brief introductions and background. G and Ron will handle that. Then we're going to have a demo for about 20 minutes. Rui, Andre, and several others are going to be part of that demo to show you how it works. And then the last 30 minutes or so of the call is dedicated to Q&A, and so that can be around the demo. This also, if you have questions that are regarding the round B work and the DAO, please, that is also the time for those questions.
Well, I'll go first. I'm Ron Lemke. I'm a professor of supply chain management at the University of Nevada. And I'll just talk a little bit about DAO membership and then let G add anything else that needs to be added. When we're talking about DAO membership, we think about it in terms of three general areas of benefits. So the first and the most important one is that these operational rights, and that you get to run a node of this distributed ledger or blockchain. So you can run this node, and you will see here in a couple of minutes what the benefits of this really are, and how this will allow you to simplify your operations and streamline a lot of things for you. So that's the main benefit, is you get the benefits of running this software. And then you can also serve as a gateway to make these services available to your customers, so that they can benefit from the things that this blockchain allows us to do. And you can also then charge them for accessing and using those services. You can also charge them for storing the data that you would be storing on their behalf. So this gives you, operational and business benefits from running the node. And then also, kind of like with the banking system, we need to be able to trust that the people who are buying and selling these things really are who they say they are. And you can serve as this trust anchor role, and provide other related services to your customers. So then the second area of benefits related to this are the economic rights that you can derive from providing these other services. Every time that your customers or you yourself want to upload some data, there's a fee that has to be charged to store and add new data to the system. And every time someone pays that cost, which we call a gas fee, all of those fees are collected, and then those credits or those fees are distributed out amongst all of the members of the DAO. So maybe I need to go back and explain that first point in just a bit, that these fees are not paid with dollars, they're paid using system credits. And when you join the DAO, you get a certain number of system credits so that you already have some. You don't have to go out and buy some somewhere. So you receive system credits just from joining the DAO. And then when you or your customers want some data uploaded, the cost of those is paid using these credits. And then on a periodic basis, all of the money that was collected is distributed back out to all the DAO members. And then the last economic part is that as the system performs things like devices get properly tracked through the end of life, the system will generate rewards, and those rewards get distributed back to all the people who are running the DAO and have system credits. And then lastly, the question people want to know is, well, who's running this? Who's making these decisions? And the answer is the members of the DAO are. So if the members of the DAO would like to increase what everybody's being charged to do a particular thing, fine. That's for the members of the DAO to decide. There is no president. There is no grand high poobah. There is no secret council. The members of the DAO all meet electronically to decide what to change. It doesn't matter how big or how small, how many credits you have, how many customers you have. Every member of the DAO gets one vote. And so if we as DAO members want to make some changes to the direction we're going, or make some changes to the software, if we want to make some changes to the fees, that's just up to everybody to collectively decide. G, do you have any more you need to add there?
Hey, thanks, Ron. Not directly, Ron. Thank you so much. And then for everyone else, you guys must have heard we are doing right now Run B for the DAO, and some of the so there will be more spots for the DAO membership. And obviously, today we are focused on the demo, but let us know if you have any question on this slide that Ron was presenting.
Bit more. All right, so thanks everybody for your attention. Let's get into the meat of today's show. So Rowie, I will turn it over to you. This is a little bit just sort of about the reference design and the demo that we're going to see, and then I will let Rowie and Andre take it from here.
Cool. Okay, so I'm not going to read this lengthy thing here. It's, I think, just so people who get the presentation after can see it. You'll see what this demo is all about. I would like to, however, introduce myself and go over what the big picture of this architecture is. So for those who don't know, my name is Rowie Sukya. I am the founder of this project, which has grown way past me at this point, which is so cool. And I run a business called TradeLoop, for those that don't know, and I'm not here to plug it, and so you'll see how this fits in. So I will, with that, also introduce Andre. Andre is our lead developer who's made most of this software, and I'm not sure if Kate is on the phone. Kate has also done the front end of this reference design. And welcome, guys. Andre was up really late last night making this thing, just polishing up some last tweaks, and it's pretty cool where we are right now. Most people have probably seen this in iterations, but at this stage, we're at the point where the whole workflow is here. We can actually do a workflow going back and forth. The only thing that's not really done in the workflow is the APIs are not connected to companies' actual systems. We're simulating that by cutting and pasting CSV files, but the APIs are all here. And there's still a lot of back-end work to do blockchain-wise, but it's pretty cool. Okay, so 2 seconds. I don't want to spend long on this, but just so you understand what we're looking at. So DAO members download this thing called a master node, and that is actually a set of different tools and pieces of software. The reference design we're going to see is one of those pieces, and this is a really simple front-end demo. It's like just an interface with a simple database for keeping track of things like your login and stuff like that. It doesn't do very much. What it does is everything you're going to see is APIs. It calls APIs to this middleware, which we call the client helper. So there's essentially, I've laid out 4 boxes here. So this front end pushes and pulls information to the middleware, which essentially syncs up to the third database, which is the blockchain. It's a validator node. So if you can imagine, all the DAO members have validator nodes. Anything that pushes in or pulls up, anything that pushes into this gets reflected across everybody's node. They stay synced. It's basically just a big replicated database, if you want to think of it that way. And the point of this reference design is not going to be a product. It's for demonstration, but 2, and more importantly, it's for the developers. So when you have a system and you need to connect to the APIs here, we've built simple RESTful APIs, commands like, create an NFT or read the NFT, straightforward commands through the API. This is an example code we've implemented. You can take the code and you can use it, port it to a different language, but it's all there. And so it shows you how it works. And in some cases, I think most cases in the beginning, people will probably just integrate this thing into their website at some level, at least for testing, just the way it is, because it does a lot of neat things. And one thing I should note too is when we say the blockchain, what we mean is it's like distributed ledgers that contain hashes. The data is not stored in there. It's very expensive. You think about 100 different copies of these validator nodes. Your data has to get stored 100 times. So it's expensive, and you want to store the minimum amount of data possible. So we just store the hashes, which is just the proofs of the data, and it links to the actual data. And it's up to the user to decide where to store that data. What we've done is built in IPFS, interplanetary file system, I guess is what that means, but it's essentially a distributed data storage system. So in the master node comes a component for storing data, and by default in this demo, anything that we upload to it document-wise, we push it into IPFS, and that's pretty much as close as we can get to decentralizing the data, because that gets replicated across the other IPFS nodes. Second, last thing I'll say about this is don't get scared by the clicks. Like, there's a lot of clicking around to do things because it's a demo. In a real system, you'll have, say, 10,000 devices. You're not going to click 10,000 times. It's going to be automated. It's going to be a single click or just an automated process on the back end. It's not, this is meant to be a reference in a demo. It's not meant to be how it's actually going to be used. So with that, I'm going to move over and get into this. Okay, so another comment I'll make as we get going. So I've already created an account. It's very simple. And afterwards, you guys can do this yourself. This design is up on the internet. So it's not 100% bug-free. But as far as the demo goes today, I won't show any bugs. And we will have the ones we know of fixed very soon. And you can play with it. So anyways, when you log in, the first thing you see is this welcome screen. And we're using it's I believe it's the BIP 39 standard for a mnemonic phrase, so you basically create a master password for all your accounts, and they do it in the form of a seed phrase. And this is a standard thing. It's a standard tool. It's not something we invented. You could actually go to websites and create your own seed phrase, and this translates into a big password is what that really is, and they make it in human readable form in case you need to write it down. It's much easier than a bunch of crazy characters. So I'm going to copy the seed phrase, and you have to store this somewhere, so I'm storing it down here, because if you lose it, you don't have access to your system. So in this demo, we're actually storing it on the server because it's just so easy to lose it or forget. And the folks who implement this have that option to store this for your customers. Just realize that you are then taking the responsibility of securing it properly. If someone hacks your system and gets your customers' seed phrases, they will have access to your customers, not just their digital assets, but any system credits, which is in effect money attached to those assets. So it's really critical to keep this thing secure. So this is a standard way of making sure people wrote it down. You know, what's the seventh word and what's the second word and the seventh word? Able, 1, 2, 3, 4, able trap. Just make sure you wrote it down. Okay, so I wrote it down, and now that little tool is done. I'm going to import the seed phrase to create some accounts. So there's nothing in there, but if there was, it would be overwritten, and here we go. Okay, so now we're on the main page, and we have a set of accounts under here, which are all controlled by this same seed phrase I just entered. And you could change seed phrase to change to a different set of accounts. And you could think of an account as a lot. So at this point, I'm actually going to switch over to a real inventory system, and we're going to look at some devices, and we're going to pull them into this system, simulating an API call. So this is where, so the platform, one of the DAO members here and one of our founding members is Usity, and I have a login and a setup system here, which I can run through. But somebody want to just do a quick introduction?
Yeah, sure. Hi. Hi, everybody. My name is Stefan. Yeah, I'm one of the co-founders of UCD. Our mission is to bring trust and transparency to the circular economy. And we develop software for ITADs, refurbishers, recyclers. So like probably for many of you, we basically have two products, data sanitization and device reports. The data sanitization part, the USB data erasure, is compliant with NIST and IAE standards, and you can use USB data erasure via USB or PXE. The second product, the device report, is used to display technical specifications such as components, manufacturer, benchmark, diagnostic results for a single device. And this information is retrieved during the data erasure, which Rory will show us later in the demo. So you have the data erasure and the metadata retrieval for the device report in one step, basically. And also one key aspect of this is that that information is retrieved and displayed in a trustworthy manner, in a secure manner through hardware inspection and hardware tests. Yeah, thanks, Rory, for
Great.
giving me the time to present.
Great. Okay, so I'm not an expert at this system, but I know enough to get through this demo. So if I need help, just David, let me know, or jump in. So what I'm going to do is show this view. I'll maximize it. Hopefully that's viewable. And we've created this test account with a set of inventory here. And so this would represent all the inventory, say, in a warehouse. Let's say it could be 12 devices, but it could be a lot more. And first, actually, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create a new lot. So I'm going to move them into a lot, and I'm going to make the lot called stuff for sale or whatever, right? So stuff for sale. Okay, and so now I'm going to go back to the devices, and I'm going to select them all, and I am going to apply these devices to the stuff for sale lot. Save changes. Okay, so if I go to the lot, and if this worked, if I did it right, then I click stuff for sale, and here it is, stuff for sale, and here it all is. Okay, so now I am going to select them all. I could select fewer of them. I could have just done this without the lot, I suppose, but it's important, I think, to see how the lots work, because that's how the accounts work in blockchain. In the blockchain, there's like the seed phrase controls all the lots. And so you can imagine that, so this now export, we're going to export it to a standard spreadsheet, which is a CSV file. But you can imagine this would be export to the blockchain directly. So you skip these steps. And the only difference here is just implementing the API that we've built. So we're ready to do this. So, okay, so I just exported it here. Let's just see if this thing works. Okay, so here's the exported CSV file. Okay, so now I am going to go back to this site. Okay, and so first thing I'm going to do, so we have this address here, this main address. I have to do a little setup here. First of all, I'm going to give it a name, because the address, this is just not that convenient. And so let's just call this like main inventory list. Okay, so I come back to here. So that's the purpose of this little front end database. There's a little database behind this, not associated with the blockchain or anything else, and it stores like the login and this little name. When I transfer stuff, it's not going to transfer this name. This is just local in the system here. So anyways, it's given it a nickname or an account name here. And the next thing I need is I need some money, need some credits. So there's 0 OBD system credits in here. So we have this little tool, it's called a faucet. And what I do is I take the address and we go over to the faucet. And it's just for test. You know, when this goes to production, this is not a thing we'll have. The DAO members, by joining the DAO, you get these credits, and once the once this goes into production, OBADA will be selling the last 32 million credits or whatever it is that are left. But for now, because you need to test things, and this is all built out, you need to get these in order to make it work. Let's go back and see if it works. So each one of those was a blockchain transaction. So you might have used Ethereum or Bitcoin or these type of blockchain applications that it's slow. I mean, it can take minutes, and this system we're using is built to be fast. It's very, you saw every one of those was a different transaction. So it's pretty cool. So now you can see I've got 8 credits. Okay. So I'm going to now import this CSV. Just take this file, cut and paste. And again, in the future, this should be an API, so you don't have to do this. So now we have these devices are imported, and they're local. So if you think back to that slide, they're just sitting in the local database. We need to push them through the API to the client helper, which then reflects it up to the blockchain. And so the word for that is minting. We're going to mint it to the blockchain, okay? And the mint costs 1 OBD because you have to pay the blockchain node. So there's all these companies running these nodes. How do you compensate them? Well, gas. So we have to take the gas, we have to pay a gas, which gets distributed to all the nodes. So let's start. I should have been minting while I was talking. So I mint, and I mint. Okay, and so now I've minted those 3. I'm going to open this in a new window here so I don't lose that. And I'm going to move them to a different lot. So I create a new account. I've got that here. And this is going to be my lot for sale. Okay, and so now I'm going to open these 3 devices that I minted. 1, 2, 3. And so here's, I'll show what the actual Carfax type system looks like in a minute in a real application. This is not meant to be like that digital passport. This is a back-end view of what's getting done. And I'll go through this in a second. But first, let me just finish this transfer. So I've got 1, 2, 3 different devices, and I'll talk about how this all works, these numbers and everything in a minute. But I'm going to transfer 1 to this address. So this is a fake demo screen, but it's a 2FA, right? If you're going to actually transfer an asset, you should, the company implementing this should do a 2FA system or something like that to ensure security, because you're transferring real stuff here. So I'm going to transfer all 3 like this. Okay, and let me make sure I write down which ones. WB, T8, and YW, the last letters. Okay, so there's 8 OBD. I've done 3 transfers. Let's refresh the screen. So you can see that those are all minted now. There's 2 OBD left because we had to pay the gas fees. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, let's see, I think next the best thing to describe before I show moving this account over to another system, I'm going to just explain a little bit about this. And I think Ron talked about this a little bit, but I'm going to explain it here. I'll do it this way. So when you add a device, we create a universal serial number. And hey, Ron, are you still there?
Yeah.
Would you mind just
Yeah.
running through that? Yeah, I'll be back in like 2 minutes.
Yeah. So if we're going to have a master database where people are tracking devices, it's obviously really important that when 2 companies are talking about a device, they are positive that they are talking about the exact same computer or monitor or whatever. And every company has its own format for creating serial numbers. And we're never going to get everybody to agree on making the serial number with the same format. But there's also no way to make sure that if we have 2 serial numbers, it's possible that one is a Dell laptop and one's an HP printer or something. So we need some way to make sure we're talking about that same device. I mean, I've talked to people who have had more than one printer in their facility made by the same manufacturer that had the same serial number, but they were different product lines. So part of what is happening under the hood here is we are generating something called a universal serial number. And so I'm sorry, it's a little hard to read, but Rohi's sharing his whole screen there. So the first thing is the manufacturer name. So that you'd put in Hewlett Packard or Apple Computer Company or whatever it says the manufacturer's name was on the device itself that you've got in front of you there. Then the part number, so that's going to be, Dell Inspiron, whatever. And then the serial number is going to be whatever the actual serial number is that's, stamped on the device. And so we take the manufacturer and the part number and the serial number. We take those three and we take all of those letters and we just paste them all together into one big long thing. And I guess we could use that as the serial number, but it'd be really unwieldy and it'd be like 30, 40 characters long. What we do is we take that string of letters and we run it through this algorithm called a hashing algorithm, and it generates this thing that looks random, U2XUE-UUUI. That looks random, but it's not. It's a formula. So if you put those same exact letters, you get those same exact outputs. You change one little thing about the inputs, you get a totally different output. So there's no way, oh yeah, he added a 3 and it's totally different. So there's no way for someone to say reverse engineer and figure out what the serial number was if you only wanted to show them the USN, for example. So this USN it's an important thing under the hood here to make sure that we're always talking about the same device.
Okay, so I wanted to say, I think it's important to note that we're working with ISO on a standard called representing physical assets using non-fungible tokens. And in the standard, this is all part of the standard. So this part here, in fact, this whole demo is really a reference design for the standard that we're working on. And if you go to our website and you click standard, you can see under OBADAfoundation.org, you can see the current structure of the standard and the proposed revisions that we're working on. And we meet every couple of weeks to go over this, a collection of us, and we're adding new people to the group. Whoever's interested in working on standards for a thing like this. We have a new member a couple weeks ago, a person who runs the standards for Ant Chain, which is a large company in China based on owned by Alibaba, who wants to implement NFTs in different ways, and they're working with us on this. And yeah, it's really exciting stuff. So this section Ron just described is section 1.1. The next section I'm about to describe is 1.2, and we're making sure we implement the software and the standard at the same time so we can make sure everything works. Now that we've done this, let me come back to the main account list and continue with the demo. So I've got this lot for sale, and it's got this, it's got no credits in it. Let me give it some money. So let me move at least one credit over because I think I need it. So I have the credits here on the screen in the account, and I hit send. I type the address. And so I'm sending one credit to that address. It's sent, and it cost 1 in gas. So back to the list. Now we have 0 because there were 2. 1 went here, and 1 was used for gas. And there's 3 NFTs. Let's see if that's accurate. 1, 2, 3. 3 HP devices with 3 USNs, etc., etc. Here, another interesting part of the standard. So I went into this page to see this. There's a default file attached to every device we call physical asset identifiers. That's the standard name for this file. And it's stored in this IPFS link. And if we view it, you'll see its serial number, manufacturer, part number. So this is the information that came off of the device. And so if you were to run some diagnostic software, this is what you push in to this NFT so that we know the next person the next company along the chain can know from the NFT what's the serial number, this is where that information is stored. And not only does it do that, and this is not implemented yet, but it's cryptographically signed. So that software needs to sign it, and you'll know where that info came from. So this can be used in proof of ownership, proof of possession, that kind of thing. Because in order to generate this from a piece of software, you have to possess the machine so you can run the software, or you have to have access to it at least. Okay, so I've got these 3 devices. So this is the coolest thing, at least for businesses like mine or businesses that need to share their information. Here's the coolest thing. So there's 3 types of keys. We've implemented the first one and not the other 2 yet. So when you play with this, you can read these in more detail. The private key is full ownership of this thing. I'm going to download it. This is like the master key for that account. So the seed phrase generates accounts and controls them all. If you own the seed phrase, you can recreate these accounts, but this key is just for this one. So the admin key would let somebody see all the information and change the data, but they can't transfer it and they can't move the money. And the read-only key just lets somebody see it. For right now, I'm just going to use this private key. Did I download it? Okay, and there it is. And that's what the private key looks like. It's this kind of formatted password, basically. Okay, so now I'm going to come over to, and hopefully everybody can see the right side of the screen here. This is the same exact demo. The only difference is the logo and some colors. When you download this, and you can go to GitHub and you can download this thing and you can install it, and you have a little config file where you can change the logo and stuff, just to make it a little, just to differentiate them a little bit. So anyways, so I'm not going to use a seed phrase in this system. I'm just going to import that one account. Standalone account. It's the only private key setup right now. I'm going to choose the file. And we are in the OBADA demo account, 1239. There's the key. Proceed. And there we go. So let's check this. So this account ends in V2MV, V2MV. And as I mentioned, it's not going to take the name because the name is stored locally. The name is not in the blockchain. So I'm just going to call this lot for sale. I'll rename it to match. And you can see here's the devices. And so this is just, maybe seems trivial to people, but if you're a company that has thousands of devices in inventory, and you need to share it with 10 other companies, and you're emailing CSV files around, or if you're a company like TradeLoop or one of the other folks that are working on this, like the broker side or ASCDI, if you have to deal with these files all day, this is just crazy cool in that you can transfer an entire inventory list with one single key. You just boom, and there it is. And they're not just transferred, they're synced. So I'll show you what I mean. So now we have this system on the left, which is just a reference design, but imagine it being this system, right? So it's this system. This is the lot for sale that we just made. And well, actually, I've only picked 3, but you get it. And instead of this sheet is an API that pushes it over to wherever you want. It pushes it to the blockchain, and then give the key to another system, and they can pull it all in. Okay. So now we're going to shift to, let's just say this is now, hit a button, click, click, click. These are listed for sale. Somebody wants to buy it, and they call you to say, well, I need to see the proof functionality, or I want to know that the drive has been wiped. And so you say, oh, okay, well, let me run a wipe on it really quickly, and I'll upload the report. USD has this feature built into their business that basically you, as Stefan mentioned, you run, you put a USB stick or so, you get the drive wipe report, and it uploads. And you can like here's their report. But I'm going to bring up the second one we have, which is tech reuse. So Charles, did you want to take a minute and just explain what TechSpec does?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, TechSpec is really similar to USD, just more basic, I guess. It captures hardware specs, uploads it to a database, automatically wipes drives. And then what it does, it creates a device passport for every machine processed. I'll send you a link basically in the chat so you guys can see what that looks like. But basically, device passport shows the specs. It shows, what's been, I guess, done to it, like wiping the drive, upgrades, that sort of thing. You can also upload photos. It does have some basic blockchain functionality now, which basically just hashes events. So it'll hash a hard drive wipe. It has a feature that'll create a device fingerprint, which is uses the same methodology that we talked about earlier, where it takes the make, model, and serial number, and then combines it, hashes it, and then it creates that fingerprint. And so it, that's what it does. But one thing I kind of want to add is basically everybody's going to have to use this kind of, ideally use this type of software, whether it be Usity, TechSpec, Blanco, Wipe OS, or whatever, to capture hardware specs on devices, because that's what's going to be used for creating the obits. And so obviously you can do it manually, but if you do it manually, it's prone to error, right? Typing it in wrong will then not allow you to create that same obit again in the future. So you got to make sure it's right the first time. And then obviously, efficiency, it's easier to use software to automate this process than doing it manually. So
cool. And I think it's worth noting, and that's probably a good time to bring it up. So this concept on the left, don't think this is what we expect, like our digital passport or the Carfax, so-called Carfax of a device to look like. This is a more technical demo, right? So there's files that get attached. This is what it would look like. So here's the version from Usity, and here's a version from TechSpec. And super important with the wiping too. It's the chain of custody is not just super important. It's required, right? You can't wipe a drive properly as an ITAD unless you can maintain chain of custody. And similarly with R2 version 3. So these type of systems are coming. I mean, people have to maintain not just the downstream compliance, but the ability to serialize and keep track of your inventory all the way to the recycler. And so as this industry starts investing to put their, a lot of these systems are just not there yet. And so as the money gets spent to implement inventory systems, this is going to happen. The chain of custody, and then connecting the wiping software directly up to the database, which is the blockchain. So there's the two Carfaxes or device passports, and now the demo is essentially, okay, I want to buy this, so prove that it's wiped. So we're going to come over here and pretend this is the guy in the warehouse, and he runs the software, and simply attach functionality report. And I think I have it in this folder. I've got a drive wipe report here. And upload to the local system, and then mint it to the blockchain, or update it to the blockchain. So we have to wait while the block is confirmed. And let's go back to our lot for sale. I can see there's 2 data objects in here now. And now, so that was done in the warehouse, right? That was done totally remotely by some guy with wiping software. It just happens, right? And then we come back to the trading network and hit refresh. And there it is. It's synced everywhere. And so then you can come here and voila, there's the wipe report. You could do this whole demo in 5 minutes. It seems like it feels, at least to me, like that's it. There's not that much else there, and there's not that much else needed, but everything here is the guts of, there's not much more functionality to add to make this a complete production system. And everything is provable all the way back because of the signatures, and the chain of custody is maintained, and all of that. So I think that's probably where I should pause and ask for questions.
Yep, this is the time when we quiz Rui and everyone else. So Anil has typed in a note saying, is the USN an ISO standard or an OBADA standard?
I could take that.
Go for it.
So maybe just to clarify, so the answer is I think we hope it will be part of the ISO standard. We are leading this ISO committee, and so our plan obviously is to make sure that that the ISO standard is exactly what we want it to look like. So it would not be quite technically true to say that OBADA is getting made into the global standard, but we're making the global standard to to match with what we're doing here with OBADA, and so we are this. It's going to be a long process, the ISO process. I had no idea how long this is going to be, but I mean, we feel really good about it. It seems like it makes a lot of sense, and there has to be some. I mean, I think the ISO standard will say there has to be some way to make sure you're uniquely identifying devices. And, if somebody builds a better mousetrap and there's something that's going to work better for everybody to use, I mean, I'm all for that. But, I mean, this is nice in that it could be 8 letters, maybe it'll be 12 letters or something, but maybe 8, like we were seeing. And another thing that's nice about the way we've got this USN standard device that I didn't mention is that you throw out, it doesn't use every single letter of the alphabet. It throws out because if a human has to type it and you can't tell the difference based on the font between like a lowercase L and the number 1 or a capital O and the number 0, it throws out those 4 letters so that these are numbers that anybody ought to be able to tell, and it should be hard to mess it up when you type it. I don't know if that answers the question exactly.
Let's go to Joe's question. So Anil has a follow-up question, and then we'll get to your question, Joe. So Anil is wondering if the ant chain, the one that you mentioned from Alibaba, is also using or planning to use USN then, and can you elaborate a bit more on the ant partnership? So I think that's a question probably more for you, Rowie.
Yeah, well, I think it's a little bit of a separate thing. I mean, what they're interested in is digital NFTs more so than physical NFTs. And just the way the ISO works is we're looking at forming a group for NFTs. And so we fit together. And the thing about our standard is that although we use the word physical all over the place, it doesn't preclude a piece of software from being used in a similar way. So it's really could be physical or digital. And so it remains to be seen whether our standard for physical assets and their standard for digital assets combine into one, or if they have a common parent standard and become 2. But the good thing is we're working together. And I think it's the first of many, because the longer we go with this, the more steam we pick up. And I often say we just have to, it's going to happen. There's no question that the world's supply chains are going to be digitally connected, and we're kind of the only game in town right now, and for the last 5 years doing something like this. So it's just exciting.
Well, it is, and absolutely, and the fact that we've got Alibaba wanting to work with us, working in parallel, in tandem with us, I mean that really is encouraging as far as future global adoption, because we're building a system that can track anything with the serial number using a non-fungible token, an NFT, and so that could be it could be a monkey picture, an NFT picture, but for supply chain purposes, people are going to be mostly interested in physical assets. And so, no, that's very exciting that they are on board.
Okay. So Joe had 2 questions, sort of related. One was, I saw you can mass transfer lots. Can you mass mint and mass generate USNs? And then sort of related to that is, and what did you say the options were to get a device's information into the system other than through manual entry?
Yeah, those are great questions.
Yep.
And because it's a little cumbersome to click and wait, click and wait, click and wait. And if you saw the last demo, it was click, pop open the screen, accept the thing, accept the thing, accept the thing, come back. It was, so we made it quicker. But this here to indicate that we're gonna do it. There's 2 cool things about this. I mean, we have to do it. There's no choice, because you get inventories of 100,000 items, right? So it has to be done in bulk. But the cool kind of thing about this is we haven't figured it out exactly how to get the gas fee into one transaction, but we have some really good ideas in not just how to bulk mint them, but to potentially combine them all in a way that it's just one gas fee. So if it's like a penny per object, it could be a penny per 10,000 if you mint them all at once. And it almost makes more sense because if you look at it by account, if it's defined by accounts, it doesn't, you could just mint the account essentially, as opposed to minting each object. And I'm going to just jump into this nerdy techie conversation for 15 seconds. And Ron, I think you're going to really appreciate this. The concept we discussed, I don't even remember when, but it was very recently. Right now we hash these things together, essentially the PAIs, the physical asset identifiers, to create a checksum or to create the identifier. And then we hash the data objects to get a checksum. But we could hash all of these together to create an identifier for the lot and hash all the checksums of the data objects to get an identifier, a data proof. And so in that way, we could just mint that as the whole lot. So that's kind of just things we've been thinking about. So that was the first part of the question. The second one was importing. Well, the import thing is this is just for, it's much easier to do a demo and for debug to just kind of go A, B, like we test it like this, A, B, C, A, B, D. It's A, B, D, D, whatever. So submit, boom. It's easier than testing an API. And then if we have gas, we don't have any gas, but we can just mint, and test. The idea though is this just is an API. It's just APIs to whatever inventory system you're connecting this to, or to whatever system. Did that answer it?
It looks like it. Yes, Joe said awesome. Tom Maloney is asking, are you standardizing what info or specs are recorded to the device report / Carfax, and can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, and maybe if anyone wants to jump in and help me with this answer, but I think this is what I call the schema question.
Yeah.
And like, okay, so if you come over to this like report here, and there's all of this info, and then you want to import this from one system to another, that system needs to recognize what all these elements are. Okay. And boy, we're trying to do this standard for every for anything in the serial number. So automotive and every industry has its own standards for these things. Just even in our industry, defining the condition, because grade A to one company is grade A, not grade A to the next. It's not even a standard for the most basic stuff. And I think it's beyond our scope to ever be able to define and impose that on the industry. So really, that's why we kind of structure it like this, where we're just talking about the simple document which contains the info and standardizing the name of that document. So wipe report, actually that's my description. The name that we chose and that we're using in the standard data objects is called functionality report, data sanitization report. And it's just a technical name. Your system has to use that name so that the next system knows what it is. That's it. And the next step of that, we're going to create a simple standard like success, yes or no, functional, yes or no, that would be part of the standard without getting into all the nitty gritty details. And that has to be in other organizations that have standards need to do that. We want to be schemaless below this level. So if you have a schema, you define it. You say, I'm using a series schema for conditions. And then the system has to know, okay, that schema is here, and here's what it means. But we definitely do not want to get down to that level of definition.
Okay, Tom says good. Eric has a question here. It says, minting and updating PNFTs obviously consume gas. Does reading the PNFT data also consume gas, at least in the way we're thinking about it?
It does not. I suppose theoretically the DAO could vote to. So this is a DAO issue, not a standard issue, right?
Right.
Just an implementation. A different industry could implement it differently, but in our system currently, the answer is no.
Okay.
You know, because like I've had a little automotive tragedy in my life, and I'm shopping for a new car, and so if you want to look at the Carfax report, just on like on any random car, you're going to pay $40 or whatever. But if somebody's trying to sell you a car, they're going to let you see the Carfax for free. And so that's, again, that's like Mark or Rohi said, that's a DAO issue. But probably it's free to read and but costs to pay, to save, to write.
Well, actually, too, let me clarify the answer as well. There's a slide. I don't know if we have a slide on it, but it's really up to the person providing the gate. So under this, the rights you were talking about, Ron, the
rights,
gateway rights, right? So to access this data, you have to connect to a node. So the DAO members control the nodes, and they can do whatever they want with them. So if Usity's node, if Usity decides to charge $1 for viewing each one of these, that's up to them. It's not really, the DAO can charge a platform fee if they wanted, but it's really, at the end of the day, it's up to the node holder to decide how and what to do with the data. They have the rights to do whatever they want.
Yeah. OBADA is not dictating a fee for that, but the node holders could choose to make it part of their business plan or something. Yes. So Eric has another question. How does OBADA guarantee persistent storage for years, decades, centuries? How are we guaranteeing storage, I guess, of all this information?
We are not. So that is a tricky question. I mean, the first question is, you've got some device with a lifespan of X number of years. How long do you really want to store it for? So we've left it up to the users. So in other words, when you mint the device, you create the location of where that file is. And if that file, so when it goes to the new user, it's up to him to specify. And our default is IPFS built into the nodes. And it will, and this is something that the DAO is going to have to talk about in the coming months, but there's a storage fee for that, and we have to pass that on in addition to the gas fee. And the longer it's there, that fee is higher. So we have to decide how that's going to work. So the simplest or the most flexible way is, you could say 10 years costs X dollars per gigabyte, 20 years costs Y dollars per gigabyte, etc. And it would stay in that IPFS as long as it's there. But the user could store it in their own system. And if it's not there, then when you look at the device, so let's just say that storage, let's say that object disappeared. So it's got this green check mark, but then when you come and look at the thing, the hashes, that object's gone. So the hashes are not going to be there. So then you try and transfer it or sell it, or someone looks at it and they say, hey, why is this thing got a big red X? Well, it's missing a document. Well, and so it's kind of a buyer beware. I think the best the blockchain can do is give you the info that the object is there and it is what it was supposed to be, or it's not there and that's the owner's fault.
I think maybe one thing also to add is that, so the blockchain is just recording the transaction, but it's not storing all this data, because it's being stored on IPFS or Amazon or wherever you want to store all these reports, because all these reports are PDFs or whatever, and those are big, and we don't want the system to be incurring the cost of storing all that. So that's why you're paying the cost of storing those documents. We're promising the integrity of the OBADA system, as long as we're all here. Yeah, the storage, if somebody messes up and deletes a file, well, we can't, we can't guard against that. But you can see that it happened.
Okay. Are there other questions? If you've got a question, you can type it into the chat or do the raised hand, and I will let you ask your question.
Just a comment on IPFS. We still have to work out the economics for that and how we're going to charge for that as a DAO. Because anyone who runs the node has that module, and when people upload to IPFS, it will store in the module, and there will be a fee, and you'll make money. So that's a kind of a big discussion. I mean, it's how long are we going to store it for? What are we? I mean, it's like those questions are unanswered still. So pretty soon, though, we we have it all here. It's more we're at the business point now where the DAO needs to get together and start talking about these issues.
Right, and that is one of the reasons, amongst other things, that we're working to expand the DAO so that we get additional voices, and we're trying to make sure that this system works for the maximum number of people possible, organizations possible. So that's our lead into please join our DAO. Other comments or questions from anybody? Could you flip to the last page of the deck, Roy, that has our contact information, just so folks can see that? Because I saw you made some additions to it. There you go. So you can reach out to the OBADA leadership. That's an email that several of us watch. There's mine as well. Rowie has added some links to the reference design if you want to read a little bit more about that. Our document site, so you can read all of the documents and things that are about our, about the work that we're doing. And we're talking about this demo and the nodes. One of the rights of the DAO members is to install a node. So please contact us if you are interested. Especially if you're a DAO member that hasn't installed a node, come and join our tech group on so that we can work with you to get a node installed. If you're not part of the DAO and would like to be, please reach out to us so that we can give you the information that is necessary to join the DAO. We are in an open call for folks to join the DAO at this point. Just drop me a note and I can help you.
Let me, if I may, Mark, let me
Go ahead.
mention this tech
Yes.
and the node installation. So we've been really wrapped up just getting this stuff done for this demo and the back end and all. It's just been very busy. So we haven't followed up in a number of months on kind of this node installation stuff. But there's two things. It's install the node, but there's connect this thing and use it in your workflow and start to think about how it's going to integrate. So there's two like different groups there, but the bottom line is after this meeting I'll regroup with Andre and Kate, and we'll there's some little issues we'll clean up, but early next week this thing is really ready, and people who want to download it, you can, and you can play with it right now. Go here and you can play with it, do what I did in the demo. And you can go to, I'll show you because this is brand new. I don't think people have seen it. We put this in this morning. Like if you come to tech resources, here's a link to the design, install a node, and these instructions, I think Nevin and Andre put these together. This is all the instructions for installing it, but we added some good information up at the top. And Andre's made a great video walkthrough. So don't do this yet, but by early next week, we're going to shoot an email to the folks who we've been interacting with, who've already installed nodes in that group, and let us know if you want to be on that list. And we're going to start following up to hopefully, next time we do this demo, it'll be connected in with a whole bunch of companies, and maybe some will have APIs working. So by mid next week, you can install this thing.
Okay, great. We have another question from Anil. So there were plans to capture carbon offset upon recycling and credit it to the recycler. How is the roadmap looking towards that and other features?
Oh yeah. So ad hoc group 4 in our in TC 307, they have started a new working group for carbon. And I had actually emailed folks and got a few people interested. And ISO just announced yesterday, I think I saw the email, when that's going to meet. And I think it's coming up in a week or two. So I'll just have to follow up. But they haven't started yet. But the short answer is we want to make sure that our standard can track the carbon as well as all recoverable materials, and we're just in a great spot to do it because they haven't started yet at ISO. So if people are interested in that and want to join, we have a membership and we can invite people in, and you could join us at the meetings. And none of us currently in this ISO working group are really experts, or I would say even very knowledgeable about the issues around carbon tracking and such. So if there are people out there who want to work with ISO to define how this works, it would be awesome, and we'll make sure that we tie it into what we're doing.
Okay. So thank you all for your time and attention, Rowie and Andre and Charles and David and everybody. Thank you so much for all the work on the demo. That was, I think, really useful. If you do have questions, think of things afterwards. please email me, mark@obada.io, and I will try to get back to you. Thanks so much, and have a great day.